Age community, I'm _PI, and I have a special guest with me today.
Hey guys, this is Hidan. You probably have recognized me from my 4,000 posts on the forum.
And being a Nazi, but we'll save that for later. Today we're going to be looking at a game. Ignore the two people that aren't CarlFTW and _PI, because we don't care about them, they don't exist.
Well,
Quite literally. This game was a Britmere played between myself and Kerk on the CarlFTW account. The reason I want to do this game today is because it really highlights how to play a Britmere. Between us, it could have been, I don't know, a horrible rape, because Kerk was, how should I put this, a Brit-laming faggot. I'm sure Hidan can attest to this.
He was known for playing his Brits and absolutely nothing else. Although, you know, one of the best Brits players I've ever seen, so can't say it was all for nothing.
Now here's the thing. I wasn't too shabby of a Brit player myself. So, basically we got in a little pissing match and decided, you know, let's settle this. Let's just frickin' fight it out. Like men. Men. And this game is what results. Okay, enough stupidity. Let's go in 3, 2, 1.
Actually, first, I just want to make a quick comment about their bases. They didn't plan to fight them.
Yeah.
That's kind of important.
We just agreed that we weren't going to be fags because it wouldn't work.
No one should ever make a base that resembles either of these. Ever. No. Kerk, being a good Brits player, somehow managed to build the worst bases I've ever seen. Also, Brett, nice micro here. I'm about 40, 30 in.
Yeah, that was not intelligent.
Yeah, guys, one of the biggest mistakes that I've made playing Eurosaves on an India lamer is that I don't watch my artillery and they walk into the enemy lines of fire and just get murdered. Cost so many resources, you lose all pushing power. It's just terrible. Make sure
my biggest mistake actually in this was not scouting the position of his calves before I even went into the first fight. I didn't know where they were, so I couldn't actually go in and position my calves so that they wouldn't go on a frickin' death course with his, which really killed me. The first fight I just dick up my calf micro horribly. And the reaction here after the first fight is essentially spam Huss, because in a Britmere, if he doesn't go fast cav and goes for fast infantry, you can get Huss out and kill his artillery. And if he does go for fast Huss, then you're break even with him.
Or you could, alternatively, he could also make goons and try and counter you, although usually...
If he makes goons, though, I can just pump, or I can just melee my muskets and whatever else remains, because usually you have at least your Rogers Rangers, and then you can pull back your Huss, and that keeps him from dying. Let's take a quick look over on the other side instead of at the main battle. We see that Kerk's trying to build up on the side so that he can put some pressure on my FB. You want to do this as Brits, especially in a mirror, because if you can get an advantage in the number of buildings you have up, you can pump more units at them, and that allows you to maintain a much more consistent level of population. I should react to this pretty decently, and it looks like I am. I'm using my Huss and a few Grens of my own to kind of beat down his stuff, and I'll probably send a few more Grens to siege that FB. And meanwhile, I'm just continuing to pressure on the front using Grenadiers. And I'm using the Grenadiers with the Huss because if I go longbow at this point, we don't have the map secured, so he can easily flank from a number of different angles. And when he can flank, longbows aren't nearly as effective because protecting them becomes extremely difficult. So in fact, in a Britmere, musket, Huss, and Gren is very good when you're both fighting in an open field.
Flanking Grens is not always, you know, a big deal, because for one thing they're very mobile, as opposed to longbows which have their whole setup time and everything. So they and they also have such high HP that you can probably get other units over there like Musks before the Hussar really do some serious damage.
Yeah, and also in a range fight against muskets, they have an advantage with 50 ranged resistance because muskets are of course ranged. And just in general, the composition is very durable.
Just a note, if you saw Kerk's pikemen earlier, that's a mistake, not strategic.
Yeah, sometimes when you're a fast player, you just miss a hotkey or something and you wind up hitting the pikeman hotkey instead of hitting the musket hotkey or something, and you wind up training a musket or a pike or whatever when you don't intend to.
That's happened a few times.
Actually, it's like a Kerk tradition. He does it every game, I swear, on purpose.
Also, it seems that Kerk... Oh, no wonder you could push him so easily in the beginning. He didn't have his black watch. That's weird.
Yeah, he didn't send his church cards yet. I forget what he sent instead, but it was probably the Cherokee.
Probably.
It might have been Longbow,
I'm a very big
though.
fan of church cards, so...
It could have been Longbow, actually. I'm gonna check his deck really quick. No, it wasn't Longbow. No, wait, I know what he did. He sent the food card. We were having a debate before we started the game about whether or not the food card would actually be, or no, not sustainable. It was the other one, the refrigeration. We were debating whether or not that card would be beneficial in the Britmere. And I said, it really would never be that beneficial. It'd be better to just have a military advantage and send it after the fact, because then you can continue to compound your advantage. You can at least push them and get a bit more aggressive in the early game, and you'll also have a more cost-effective early game because your units will be stronger than his.
Right.
And I just send my food cards pretty much directly after 40, which gives me a little bit of an advantage.
Right. Just a note, you'll see here that both players are actually fighting on about 3 different fronts. I know the German players complain a lot about how we whine about running. This is not running. This is something that you're going to have to expect when you fight strong players. If you notice, Brad is using one of his flanks very effectively with a few grenadiers just to screw up Kerk's flank, because he knows that if he gets a full surrounded buildings, Kerk is going to have nowhere to go except to retreat back into his base, giving map control away.
Indeed. You want to keep control of the map. Like right now I'm pressuring this front, really hammering down Kerk's FB, and this is forcing him to say, I need this flank. If I don't get this flank, I can't control him because he's just going to push me directly back and win the game outright. Because once I have total map control, there's really nowhere he can go. I mean, he could run away to the side or something, but we agreed that we would just fight a man's fight and not be fags. Which is pretty hard for me, but...
Little humor there. Keep your day job.
Okay, well. You can also see that Kerk likes using a lot of infantry in a Britmere, and I actually use quite a bit of Huss. More so than Kerk. And I use them a lot because they're very good at flanking and just controlling your opponent. When you can get a couple of Huss on someone, you can go up and attack mortars. You can make longbows really not viable until they have walls up, because you can just force them to keep moving their army around and shuffling it. And then your muskets wind up dealing a ton of damage. I also ship the Cherokee because if he's going a musket Huss composition and I have the Cherokee out, I get the advantage. If he goes with a longbow style, which he is now, then I still have a decent composition because the Cherokee will really destroy the muskets. And I'm still going to continue to pressure this side over here with a couple of mortars, the Grens and the muskets, and just use Huss to try and guard the mortars because they train very fast and it'll be break even between our Huss instead of one of us getting a huge advantage. But since they're so fast, it allows me to actually have something that I can defend again, or defend his Huss with when I'm low on pop.
Yeah, actually, Brett is doing significantly better on the front towards the natives, although Kerk is still definitely holding his own on the other side. One big note that I just saw Kerk do, which a lot of British players make the mistake of doing, he actually, I believe, corrects this usually, but don't ever use the attack move with longbows. They fire twice as fast as a musket, but their setup animation still takes 3 seconds. So if you hold them on attack move, they in fact fire pretty slowly, whereas they will actually deal full damage and not get nearly as much overkill and actually fire way good if you don't use attack move. 26 range basically means you don't need to anyways.
Actually, there is one situation where you should use attack move when you're moving forward. Because otherwise, you're going to have setup animation anyway when you move your units forward. You should attack move the ones at the back forward, that way they don't just stand there and die. But other than that, really attack move is really not very useful.
But I mean, why couldn't you just theoretically move your whole thing forward and then hit attack?
Because you're still going to have the unit animation anyway, and you want to keep as many of them firing as possible. So if they're already firing, then you just move the ones that aren't firing at the back forward using attack move, so that they go into the minimum amount of range they need to start firing. That helps to maximize the range advantage of the longbows.
But that doesn't mean do it to all of them, because doing it to all of them
Right.
still
If you just like double click one longbow and then say attack move and go, I win,